Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Sussex Azure podcast. It's been a while since we spoke to you. I think Jack and I recorded the last one before the summer holidays.
Yeah, I want to say like July, June, something like that.
Yeah, and it was from the pub as well, so it all got a bit hazy after that. So yeah, we're good. We're glad to be back in the swing of things in September. As always, I'm accompanied by Jack, my trusted friend and colleague. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, good, refreshed after a summer break, and hopefully you are too. And yeah, as you say, back with some more content.
Yeah, absolutely. And this time we're going to talk about AVS again, so Azure VMware Services. I think it was our second episode. We did
It was indeed.
Podcast when AVS was just first announced and it went into private preview. It's been GA for a while now, and we thought we'd just do a quick update episode on all of the new features, some of the use cases, and actually we'll start by introducing Dennis and just talking about what AVS is. If you haven't caught that episode and you don't know what it is, we'll cover it at a high level. But I guess now's a good point to introduce Dennis as our kind of technical expert as part of the call.
Our AVS guru, Dennis. So yeah, welcome to the show, and yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like who are you, what you do at Microsoft, and we're going to take it from there.
Sure, happy to do that. Hi, everyone. My name is Dennis. I'm part of the global black belt team for advanced migration in EMEA. We're covering the entire area of EMEA together with 6 others. And we're part of a global team in which there is a region or a team covering the region, the US, as well as APAC. And all of us, basically, we are focused these days heavily on Azure VMware Solutions, which actually went GA, I think it was like almost a year ago now. Yeah, since then we've come a long way, and we're seeing a lot of traction with customers of all sizes, basically. So yeah, that's what we do.
It was an interesting one when it was announced, and back when Jack and I were talking about this the first time round, we were kind of struggling to imagine why people would use this over Azure native, right? It's like you're making that transition into cloud. You kind of want to move away from feeding and watering your own kind of virtual cluster and everything else. But actually, and Dennis, you and I have been working together in a number of customers and in deployments that's going into production. For me, it's that kind of ease of migration that you can't do with Azure native, and we can talk about this as part of this podcast episode, but things like HCX that allow you to kind of seamlessly migrate into cloud is kind of worth paying the premium for things like tactical data center exit, right? If you need to get out of somewhere very, very quickly, AVS is pretty much the de facto way of doing that in cloud now, so far as I can see.
That is indeed correct. What we're seeing as one of the main attraction points, or one of the major attraction points for customers to come and check out AVS, is the ability to, in use cases such as data center evacuations, to start moving your workload at scale, right? You don't want to, in most cases anyway, on your if you start from an on-premise AVS clusters, to start planning for IP changes, right? In most cases, you've got a lot of legacy, services running on-premise, of which you don't always have accurate documentation, and even no longer the people that have created it even on the payroll still. So you're looking to move that workload as quickly as you can into the cloud. And what better way is that to start leveraging VMware tools such as HCX, which, by the way, comes bundled with AVS, right? So AVS is a collection of a number of services and tools, and also people, right? Because you're not left by yourself. We will, support you in your journey onto AVS. We make sure that a key tool such as HCX is correctly installed, correctly integrated. We make sure that you're able to, pick up your workload and move them across in most cases, and that's, as I said, is of great importance to customers without having to change your IP. And that is, like, I would say, a big plus. I mean, if you compare that to picking them up and moving them straight into Azure.
I think one of the key things as well as part of AVS is the flexibility. So if you were to, so let's get away from kind of data center evacuation. If you were to build a discrete data center, maybe you're adding capacity or something and you were looking at hardware, it's quite a long-term investment, right? You're going to need somewhere to house that hardware. You're going to have to invest a lot of money in buying the tin and cobbling it all together with networking and everything else. There's also the licensing, VMware support. The great thing about AVS is it's all bundled in that cost, and you can kind of flex up and flex down on a per node basis once the environment's live. You could never actually do that on-prem at all. You'd always be bound to sunk investment in hardware. You might have a yearly service contract with VMware Direct as well. But because this is all paid for through your Azure bill, it just makes it super flexible to consume VMware vSphere as part of a monthly cost.
Big driver is also customers that want to modernize, but have this great big bunch of legacy applications that they don't necessarily know, as I said before, very well. So if you move that first into the cloud, you'll be able to, because you're very close to all of the other Azure services, you'll be able to, at near land speed, start consuming those services, right? So, and that is a big plus also in a lot of customer use cases, I'd say. Also, and what I wanted to mention is that over the past year, since we've taken this GA, we've invested heavily in getting support for disaster recovery scenarios, right? Both on-premise to cloud as well as cloud to cloud. Like, for instance, we're supporting VMware Site Recovery Manager. A lot of customers have invested like a lot of time and effort into that and don't want to necessarily let their investments from a skilling level point of view go to waste, right? So if you've got all of that on-premise inside of your organization and you don't want to let that get to waste, SRM, AVS is definitely the right way to, move your workload into the cloud.
And I think you make a really good point there, Dennis, around the skilling element, right? And I think that's something that I've seen in certainly a lot of engagements where customers want to move to the cloud. There may be an exec or a leadership commitment that they said we're going to be in the cloud by the end of, 2022 or 2023. And the teams are then looking, going, well, how? Like, none of us have got Azure skills. None of us know how to do this. Like right now, how can we get our workloads up there? And it sort of leans on that easy or simplified data center exit strategy or rapid data center exit. But actually, from a skilling perspective, if you do want to consume, Azure, and as you say, get access to those sort of more PaaS services like SQL and storage and all those things that we offer as a service, but you just want to actually get your workloads up there in the first place and not have to retrain people and not have to recertify, AVS is a great solution for that because you can be in the cloud and not really have too much contact points with Azure apart from the initial deployment, and we're going to show how easy that can be in a second. But then, once you're there, obviously you're very close, and you can then start saying, right, we've done the initial migration. Now we can start upskilling in Azure, and then start slowly migrating those workloads into sort of more modern Azure services using some PaaS services. But then, as you say, you still might have some legacy workloads that still need to run on some old hardware or in VMware services, and they can stay there.
Yeah, and that's a good point, actually. You can still run Windows 2003 in AVS if you wanted to, right? It's not recommended, but technically you can, rather than you can't in Azure. There's also things like extended security updates for Server 2008. Live migrate them into AVS, and you get free ESU security patching that you'd have to pay for otherwise if they're in an on-prem environment. Same goes with things like sustainability. If you're looking to improve if your company has a carbon initiative to reduce the amount of carbon they produce, moving them into AVS, it's then a kind of a Microsoft problem. And we've done podcasts on our sustainability charter, but things like that, and also the security wrapper as well. It's protected by the Azure Edge and all of our security capabilities there. So there's a lot of benefits that I think are typically overlooked when you just compare, this tin versus a node cost in Azure. You're getting a load of soft benefits. Another one I forgot was Azure hybrid usage benefit as well, right? So you can bring your Windows licenses over. You don't have to pay for relicensing SQL. So I think that stuff's so easily lost when you just look at the product pages. But actually, by just running the VMs in AVS just in Azure, you get all these soft benefits too.
Exactly, the ecosystem that wraps around from Azure is still there, and I think you picked up on a good point around the extended security updates. And I think I saw announced literally this afternoon, and we're recording this on Tuesday the 21st for everybody out there. I think we've literally just announced the same for 2012 and 2012 R2 as well. So I saw that literally flash up before we started this podcast. So, and I'm imagining that that's going to extend into AVS, right? Because it's still part of that Azure ecosystem. So, maybe Dennis, that's something or maybe something you can confirm, or maybe it's something we just need to keep our eyes peeled for. But I haven't actually seen the blog post, so maybe it's something we can go and look at. But yeah, I think we talked around AVS and what it is, and the benefits and the reasons why people are doing it quite a bit. I think the next step would be great to sort of maybe how do we deploy this, right? What maybe we can talk in how many nodes you need, like what are the standard sort of combinations, is there a minimum node count, maximum node count, those sort of things. And I know, Dennis, you've got access to sort of a demo environment that we can share, so I'll pull that up on the screen and maybe we can dive into some of that.
Sure. Be happy to. Yeah, so from an AVS perspective, we require the SDDCs, the software-defined data centers, private cloud, to be spun up using 3 nodes at the very minimum. We're currently standardized on one single SKU, and there'll be more SKUs coming up. And so from a provisioning, how do you provision this? You provision this from the Azure portal, right? So from the Azure portal, you can go to AVS Private Cloud, where you just basically click it, and then you will be taken to a screen in which you will be able to go and pick the resource group, because we want this AVS to be created inside of a resource group. And there are a number of prereqs basically that you need to take into account. The prerequisites that you need to be, and it's clearly visible on screen, as you can see. It's very user friendly. You need to be on an enterprise agreement or as a CSP customer. And very important, you need a /22 private address space CIDR block, which we will be consuming for the purpose of creating the private cloud itself, right? So we will be setting up all of the necessary components that together make up AVS. So that's from a requirements perspective, what you need to do. Then, secondly, comes a screen that will require you to select a resource group. Selecting of the resource group, or you can create new resource group, just as with any other resource that you create on the Azure cloud. On the next section that you see here, you need to specify a resource name for your private cloud. The resource name is just like, in line in most cases with your naming conventions. You need to pick the region here, and these are the regions where we are live at the moment, or in which we will be going live very soon. And the next one down is the size of the host. Now, as you can see, I don't have any available items here in that Dropbox, and that is because I don't have quota for it. And this is also a very important topic. In order for you to start spinning up cluster nodes, you need quota. You need to request quota for it, so that you can be assigned the amount of nodes that you need. The last one down here is number of hosts. So if you're, as I was saying before, you need to request a minimum of 3 nodes to start off your cluster with, and then scale out to a maximum of 96. Excuse me, a maximum of 96 nodes per private cloud. You can also add 12 clusters at the very maximum, and 16 nodes inside of each cluster you can provision. And then at the very last thing here on your screen, the very last section, the last part of the screen is that CIDR block that I mentioned before. And like I said, this needs to be a /22, non-overlapping private address space, because that will be our block that we will be using in order to create that private cloud for you. And that's basically it, right? I mean, if you go to the next screen, you will be able to assign tags as with any other resource that we support on the Azure cloud. And that's basically it. So if you then hit next, review, and create, you can at this point, or you are at this point, of course, obviously my validations failed here because I don't have the quota at this point for creating the cluster itself. But at this point, you're ready to start the provisioning process, which will in the end result into a fully deployed private cloud with the amount of nodes that you need. Fully deployed also is the NSXT software-defined networking stack. Fully deployed also is vSAN, right? This is a hyper-converged solution. So we're using vSAN to bundle all of the storage that is part of these nodes together. And yeah, so everything is going to be fully set up for you. Once you're done with that, and that's like roughly 2.5, 3 hours, sometimes a little bit more, but roughly around 3 hours. And it's best to maybe spin that up before you go take a long lunch or something like that, or start it up in the evening and come back in the morning, and you will find yourself with that fully deployed private cluster. Try doing that, I would say, on premise. Going to the, putting out the order, getting the hardware, racking and stacking that, and install ESXi. That's going to take forever, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
So
that's also the networking configuration and everything else that's just all pre-canned, and it's going to do all that automatically behind the scenes. For all of that to be available and to provision the, you're effectively allocating physical hosts to yourself within an Azure region, right? And there's automation behind the scenes, stitching all that together just for your own use. I find that pretty awesome. That's very cool.
And just to touch on another point there, Dennis, you mentioned the quota that you didn't have. So for people who aren't aware or maybe not used Azure, that might sound like quite a daunting thing, right? Like, how do I get quota? Who do I need to go and speak to? And you're like, well, actually, just to clear that up, it's as easy as creating a support ticket, right?
That is indeed the case. You need to, and thanks for bringing that up, you need to indeed create a support request for that, just to, because let's not forget, this is dedicated hardware, right? So we are allocating dedicated server hardware to you as a customer. You're not sharing that with anyone else. This is your hardware. You will also be provisioned with an express route that connects you to the Azure backbone. So all of that is dedicated to you, right? And so in order to streamline that process, we need you to request quota for the amount of nodes you are willing to, make part of your private cluster going forward.
Yeah, and that's as easy as that, as you can see on your screen, right? Just hitting that question mark symbol in the top right-hand corner, and that's it. You're away. You can create a ticket, follow the options through, and there's one that will say quota request, and you're there. So really easy to do once you've got access to that subscription. So yeah, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, carry on where you were going.
Yeah, as soon as that is done, basically, this is what you get, right? So you will see an AVS private cloud resource being created as part of that resource group that you specified earlier. This private cloud will have a number of interesting features that you can control from here, but this is not the only location where you control it from, right? So as mentioned before, you want to safeguard all of your skill sets that you've built up over the years on premise. That will not be lost. So for people who are very much used to managing a VMware through vCenter, that is not going to go away. So you will be able to connect to vCenter and if you click on the connectivity section here, you will see that coming up. Connectivity will list you with the networks and the IP addresses for both the vCenter itself, as well as the NSXT manager. You will get to see the IP addresses. You will get to see that's actually the identity tab. Sorry about that. Let's do that again. So as soon as you get this, you will be able to click the identity tab in order for you to understand where the web client URL is, right? You've given us a /22 block, and this is one of those IPs that we will be allocating for you to the vCenter. So once you've connected your AVS up to your on-premise network, we have several deployment scenarios that we support, documented and also out there. We support everything from global reach, which is our typical deployment pattern, to integrate your express route, the on-premise, the customer front-end express route with the AVS backend express route using global reach. But we also support forced tunneling setups. We support setups through, if you need to pass through a firewall before going to AVS, that's all very much supported. We also support site-to-site tunnel, site-to-site VPN tunnel. So if you want to get started just setting up a site-to-site VPN tunnel, that is all very much supported. So once you've got all of that in place, you will be able to connect to your vCenter using this IP here, or to the NSXT manager using this IP here. As you can see, there is an admin username, which is Cloud Admin for vCenter, and there's an admin username for NSXT as well. You copy the password from here, and then you will be able to connect to both vCenter as well as NSXT. And vCenter is going to look just the same vCenter, because that's what it is. It's the same vCenter which you've been using for a number of years already on premise, and you will be happy to continue using going forward once you've got your AVS private cloud stood up.
So you raise a really good point here, Dennis, in terms of, it's vCenter, just as we know, it's the same vSphere sort of software that we've been using for years. I suppose question that a lot of people might have is what version do you get installed? Like, what version of vSphere and vSAN and NSXT is currently being deployed?
And can you control it as well?
Yeah. We are currently on 6.7 update 3 vSphere. The next iteration of vSphere 7, is going to be coming later on. That's definitely a roadmap, but it's going to come later on. It's not there. It's not there yet for AVS. And this brings me also to, let's not forget, we're offering a service. So every patch that needs to be applied to vSphere, security, urgent, less urgent, any upgrades that you normally would need to do on premise, we'll do that for you, right? So this is our responsibility. We need to make sure that we properly communicate that to you as to when we're going to be doing that. We will allow you ample time, obviously, for it to be planned, and we will also allow you specific slots, basically, to pick and choose from, so that we can do this upgrade in close collaboration with you. So if there is a patch, if there is an upgrade to be done on the environment, we'll do that in close collaboration with you. We communicate, by the way, through service host.
So is it up to the customer to evacuate all the VMs from that host before the update happens, or do you just, let the inbuilt VMware HA tools take care of it? How does that work?
Correct. This is all HA. We will take care of all of that. There's generally no customer intervention there. The only customer intervention we ask is for you to approve the slot in which we can do the work required.
Awesome. That's really nice to hear. Like, and I think you mentioned just at the end there that it's all communicated through Service Health, which is again for people who are a bit newer to Azure, the tooling where we provide all of like the planned maintenance or any outages that we've got that is set up for every subscription, and you can get that to email you alerts or text you alerts or trigger a webhook to open a ServiceNow ticket. There's loads of integration opportunities there, but that's really nice to see that you've got that integration straight from the off.
Yeah, and just to take you through a number of other bits and pieces that you can do from here, I'd like to also draw the attention to add-ons. Add-ons is where we allow you to set up disaster recovery. This is where you have the disaster recovery options. Currently, for instance, we have invested a lot of time, effort into integrating Azure VMware Site Recovery Manager. VMware Site Recovery Manager requires you to bring a license, right? So it's not part of the AVS solution as such. You need to bring a license yourself, and this is there to because we know that a lot of customers on-premise in their on-premise environment have, in a lot of cases, invested heavily in SRM, Site Recovery Manager. And so they're looking to continue doing that on AVS. So we support use cases on-premise to cloud as well as cloud to cloud. So if you have another SEDC set up in another region for region-to-region failovers, DR scenarios, we do support SRM there as well. And secondly here, and this is the tool that I would say almost all of our customers use and are very much in favor of, is HCX, right? HCX, Hybrid Cloud Exchange, is our mobility tool. This is the tool that allows you to stretch your on-premise VLANs into AVS. And by means of replication-assisted vMotion, which, by the way, requires the Enterprise Edition, which is free, by the way. So, I mean, you can upgrade to Enterprise Edition without any additional cost. Replication-assisted vMotion allows you to, based on the vMotion technology, in combination with another option that HCX offers, which is bulk migration, it allows for hundreds of VMs to be replicated in parallel whilst they're online. So you're going to be replicating all of your workload across from on-premise into AVS. And when the times come to when the replication actually is finished, HCX Enterprise Edition replication-assisted vMotion will cut all of these over, right? Using vMotion, using the, I would say, the trusted technology, because it's been around for many years now, it allows for that workload to be cut over. The cut over will happen sequentially, one by one. These VMs will be cut over whilst maintaining their IP addresses into AVS. And this is, I would say, the true value of HCX. And it's been in use ever since the beginning of our offering, of our AVS offering, and it's been our, I would say, really trusted and very much in use and loved tool by the customer.
So you mentioned that site-to-site VPN is supported, right? Is using HCX, right? Is probably not a good idea to do it over the internet. But is there any constraints? Do you have to have an express route, for example, to be able to do that kind of migration?
Thanks for bringing that up. It used to be a constraint. Up until a few weeks ago, we were not able to support HCX across VPN tunnels in production. We were able to do that. We were able to support that in POC, QA, test runs situations, no issues, but we weren't able to do that supporting it in production. That has changed in the meanwhile. So we are now very much capable of both running as well as supporting HCX over IPsec from on-premise into AVS. Now, whether that's a good option for you or not remains to be seen, obviously, because you're going to be running that over the internet. Latency is not guaranteed. And so there might be some issues here and there, but from a conceptual point of view, it is no problem. And actually, a lot of customers are looking into that, but then more from the angle, from the viewpoint of SD-WAN. Right? So SD-WAN, there's lots of vendors out there that offer SD-WAN support solutions. And yes, we do support HCX over SD-WAN because obviously ultimately SD-WAN are IPsec tunnels, right? So with certain amount of intelligence and control behind it, but yes, we now do support those integration scenarios over HCX.
Brilliant stuff.
Cool. So I suppose what are some of the new things that have been, like I see like we've got something like called run command in preview, which I know what run commands are for Azure VMs, but is that something new for AVS?
Yeah, run commands is something very new. As you can see at the moment when we were recording this, it is in preview. A run command is a functionality that we decided to release to help us overcome those use cases in which, for instance, let me give you a clear example. It used to be a bit of a problem to because we allow cloud admin up to the level of cloud admin. We allow access to our service up to the level of cloud admin. It used to be a problem to integrate an identity provider, right? I'm guessing you would want to integrate vCenter with Azure Active Directory. Mm-hmm. Or you want to integrate it with another LDAP provider, no issue at all. That is definitely something that people will want to do. Now, setting up an identity provider used to be a bit tricky because you'd need elevated privileges to do that. So when we launched the offering, we needed to ask the customer to create a support ticket. That support ticket would then result in someone from support coming in and helping you to set up that identity provider. That is no longer the case. With run commands, it provides you with an integrated way of actually setting up that identity provider for you. You can do this all by yourself. You no need to raise support tickets anymore. So the whole process is simplified greatly. Also, what we are also supporting from a disaster recovery scenario point of view, not only SRM is integrated, but also, and actually this is in preview at the moment, we will be launching it GA later on. That is Jetstream. Jetstream is also based on VMware technology called IO filters. Is a solution that we have decided to integrate with AVS. Why? Because it allows for all of the IOs being done towards AVS to be captured and stored into Blob. And that is the basis basically for regenerating all of the changes, all of the IO that you've been doing as part of the service to your VM and to the data, to be able to store that on Blob and to recover from that in case of disaster. So in order to set that up, you also need elevated privileges, and this is basically what that does. There are a number of other bits and pieces for which you need a little bit more than Cloud Admin for, and these are listed here as well. Like for instance, storage policies. Right? If you want to change storage policies, this is also something that you're looking to use this feature for.
Awesome! Yeah, that's a great feature to see.
Sorry.
That's awesome to see, like just like the advancements, yes. And hearing what the customers and our field are saying, and then going, okay, well, how can we solve this pain point for our customers where they need to raise a support ticket? How can we present that? And it's a great addition to see.
Yeah. What I also wanted to quickly highlight, what you can do from this portal basically is this one, and this one is also very much, I would say, appreciated by our customers, because if there's one thing that you need to take into account is that on the AVS side, we do not support VLAN-backed networks. We have NSXT as our standard software-defined networking stack. So that means that customers, it just takes a little while to, understand the concept of software-defined networking, to really, grasp what you need to do. Like, for instance, just to give you an example, we're no longer using VLANs, we're using NSXT segments, right? You need to make sure that you assign an NSXT segment to a tier 1 router, which is, again, another concept that is introduced in NSXT. So in order to ease the transition into NSXT, what we've done is we've created inside workload networking, we created a facility that is going to allow users to, just as if they were going to create VLANs, they can do it from here, right? But in the background, what this will do is it will create an NSXT segment on the AVS side. So if you create a segment here, right, and if you then go to your NSXT console, your management station, you will see that segment being present there as well. So you can create it from here, and it gets populated immediately on the NSXT side to basically ease the transitioning into NSXT. That is what we've created this for. Other services that we're allowing you to create from here, also NSXT services, are DHCP service, right? You can do that from here as well. You can set up port mirroring for troubleshooting purposes. That can all be done directly from the portal as well.
And just to clarify on that point, because I know port mirroring is something that comes up in a lot of my customer conversations at the moment, that is purely within the AVS side. So that's not touching the Azure networking or anything like that. It's purely within AVS.
That is correct. Yes. Thanks for adding that. What we also allow for you to create is DNS zones, right? You can create that from here directly for AVS itself. Like if you, for instance, want to set up a forwarding zone, that can be done from here. You don't need to, but it can be done.
Cool, and I suppose a couple of last questions for me whilst we wrap this up. How do you go about deploying a VM? Is that all done from inside the vSphere console? So you need to log into vSphere, provision your VMs, or is there another way you can do that from the Azure side?
Several different ways of doing that. The most logical way, of course, is to go into vCenter and create it from there. You can also, do it using infrastructure as code, right? So you can use ARM, you can use Terraform. You can even use the native VMware API, right? So that is very much open. So all of those, I would say, facilities are at your disposal for provisioning VMs. One of the recommendations that we also do in terms of images, in terms of templates, is for the customer to create a central repository. That usually is present on-premise. But how to do that, right? When your workload is transitioning, when you've got like two environments on the AVS side, one on-premise, while you're moving workload across. Well, the answer is to create a repository on blob, right? And once you've got that on blob, basically use that both on-premise as well as in the AVS environment. That way, you're still maintaining a single source of templates, images. Everything is there, and you can provision from there. So you're not running the risk of ending up deploying the wrong version or anything like that. All of that is, by the way, documented in various blog posts as well as on our official doc site.
Actually, sorry, Jack, and just bringing up storage as well, something that was announced a few weeks back now, was the capability to use native Azure storage in AVS as well. And for me, that was something that some of our competitors don't do, because you're effectively constrained by the storage on each AVS node, right, being a hyper-converged setup. But the fact that you can push file shares, for example, to Azure Files and be able to use that within AVS is something that's a great new capability.
Yes. What we have been supporting from the beginning is setups like, for instance, using Azure File Sync in order to avoid customers from having to use expensive vSAN storage, right? And use deploy file sync and use that in conjunction with Azure Blob, right? So move the bulk of the not in use or not frequently accessed storage into Blob. That is one of the use cases that we're also seeing with customers. It resonates heavily with customers as well. And what you're alluding to there, Ryan, is the fact that we recently have announced, and that's actually in public preview at the moment, disk pools. Now, Azure Disk Pools is the technology that we use on the Azure side. It basically is ultra or premium disks, which we front with a nice SCSI ID, and that allows for the customers to start using Azure storage as data stores on their AVS private cloud. And that's a massive advantage, because it will prevent customers from having to add additional nodes just for the sake of storage that they need to consume. And that's I would say a big plus. And that is as I was saying, that is something that we've recently released.
Yeah, that's great to see, and something we'll leave all of these show notes. We'll get a brain dump off of Dennis and leave these all in the show notes, and leave these also in the YouTube descriptions as well. So check below, and we'll leave those all there for you.
Yeah. That was. It feels like AVS has come a long way since Jack and I spoke around.
Definitely.
Some really new good capabilities there, and ultimately we hope this video and demo has been useful in helping you deploy AVS, particularly as you need to get quota and stuff just to see some of those configurations available in the portal. So I hope it's been useful. But thanks, Dennis, for your time and taking us through it. It's been really good.
Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll speak to you later.